In Washington, there are concerns about Judge Tanya Chutkan's ability to conduct a fair trial. That's because she previously worked for a law firm that's been tied to Hunter Biden and thus Burisma. Chutkan has given the Trump team and the DOJ another deadline to set up a hearing on the protective order. Now, Trump's lawyers filed their response saying the prosecution's request is overly broad and restrictive of his First Amendment rights.
Also, in Trump's classified documents case that's happening in Florida, Judge Eileen Cannon is criticizing two filings from Jack Smith's team. One request was using an out-of-district grand jury proceeding to continue to investigate this case.
That's right. National correspondent Logan Raddick joins us now live in our Washington newsroom with more. So, Logan, this is really becoming a tale of two judges.
That is the case, John. And Florida District Judge Eileen Cannon, the Trump appointee, is demanding more information from the Department of Justice regarding the grand jury. Now, Judge Cannon ordered the Justice Department to explain, quote, the legal propriety of using an out-of-district grand jury proceeding to continue to investigate and or seek post-indictment hearings on matters pertinent to the instant indicting matter in this district. Now, what that means is Cannon is ordering both the DOJ and Trump defendant Walt Nauta to comment on the legality of special counsel Jack Smith's ongoing grand jury activity here in Washington, D.C., which relates to the obstruction portion of the Mar-a-Lago documents case before her in Florida. Now, here in Washington, where a grand jury indicted Trump last week for alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election, Obama-appointed Judge Tanya Chutkan expedited her schedule, giving Trump's legal team just one business day to respond to a protective order over the discovery evidence. Trump's legal team's response said in part, quote, without doubt, the court's decision to vary from the default local rules and allow President Trump less than one business day to respond to this important motion is a concerning development inconsistent with his due process rights. They say the protective order would infringe on Trump's First Amendment rights, but the government is worried Trump and his team plan to, quote, litigate this case in the media after his attorney, John Lauro, went on 5 shows this past Sunday.
Mike Pence will be one of our best witnesses at trial. I read his book very carefully. And if he testifies consistent with his book, then President Trump will be acquitted. Based on what Vice President Pence will say, the government will never be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump had corrupt or criminal intent.
And the D.C. federal judge, Judge Chutkan, is giving both sides until 3 p.m. Eastern to set a hearing on or before August 11th, which is next week, regarding the protective order. That is the same time Trump is set to speak in what will be a major test of what his legal team is calling a blanket gag order. John, Bianca.
All right.
Interesting. All right, Logan Raddick live in Washington, D.C. Thanks for breaking it down, Logan.
Thanks, Logan.
And joining us now, Delaware Counsel for the Heritage Foundation and chairwoman of the Delaware Republican Party, Julianne Murray, joins us today, and also with us, defense attorney Ken Belkin. Welcome to you both.
Thanks for having us.
Let's talk a little bit. So
Glad
Trump is speaking at 3 p.m. and we have Judge Chutkan, who is forcing now by 3 p.m. Both parties to agree on this hearing regarding what's called a protective order. It seems like there's an incredible rush here, Julianne. Isn't there usually like a week that they have to decide these things? What do you read on Judge Chutkan's move today?
It's aggressive, and yes, I mean, this is a protective order should, it has an appropriate place. I don't know that it's appropriate here, and the fact that she is pushing it to be, the motion practice to be this quick is surprising from my perspective. I know that that the other panelist does criminal defense, as do I, so I'm sure that he's going to say the same thing, just in terms of the fact that she's moving this way, the fact that they're talking about a protective order at all in terms of what Trump can say about this is, I happen to agree with his attorneys that this is an assault on his, his First Amendment rights. And the idea that they're saying that his lawyers are going to litigate this in the press, they're doing it. So, it just, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, Ken, let's bring you in on this because I'm looking at this, the response from Trump's legal team. And the argument, they talk about it being that the proposed order is overbroad. Trump's team also suggests that the court quote, limit the DOJ's protective order to genuinely sensitive materials, and they ask for a definition of what sensitive materials would be. If the DOJ doesn't, though, is this just really essentially a gag order? What do you think?
Yeah, a rose by any other name is still a rose. And if they want to place content-based restrictions on him and his First Amendment rights, then this is more than just a typical protective order in a criminal case, which is meant to protect witnesses, to protect sources and methods. This is more to curtail his ability to rebuff these allegations in the press, where the government is happy to litigate this case as well as in court. So I think by all means, this is an assault on his First Amendment rights, and it's political speech. It's considered among the most protected speech when you look at First Amendment case law.
Some will say they're not surprised, though, because of some of what we're learning about the judge, Julianne. There are ties from her to her former firm, where she worked until 2014, until she was confirmed as a federal judge. You know, that this law firm also had Hunter Biden being paid by the firm. They are big Democratic donors here. I mean, a lot of folks are saying she should just recuse herself. The optics here are incredibly bad.
They are, and and a couple of things in terms of the firm, depending on the size of the firm, and and whether she actually had any involvement, may actually affect that. But the issue with recusal is that it is in her hands. I mean, there is a mechanism where there can be basically a motion, but still, it's her ultimate decision. And you would want, in any criminal case, you want the perception that it is a fair proceeding. And this is already kind of coming out of the blocks as not particularly fair. And those optics matter in something like this, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Julianne, that was really my question. I mean, is there any process, if there's a conflict of interest with a judge in a federal case, for that judge to, can she be forced to recuse herself? But again, going back to what you're saying, it's really in her hands. That decision is hers to make.
It is. I mean, so there can be a motion practice that, that allow, where basically, and I would encourage, if she doesn't do it herself, Trump's attorneys to push this issue so that it does get out there. And if she refuses to do it, yes, that, is an appealable, decision, but ultimately it is her call. And that's a problem.
Yeah. I want to talk about Georgia for a moment, and just to sort of recall what is happening there. We know that the indictment, the fourth one, could happen. Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis had said that they're ready to go. There's heightened security around the courthouse in Atlanta, so that's signaling that may be something happening there. But, grand juries are just regular folks. They don't have to be unanimous. And we all remember Emily Kors speaking out to CNN. I'd like to play a little bit of her testimony, where some say this is troubling if the fourth indictment does come against the former president. Let's listen to her.
We definitely heard a lot about former President Trump, and we definitely discussed him a lot in the room. And I will say that when this list comes out, there are no major plot twists waiting for you.
She kind of went on a publicity tour. Ken, some say that is not good. And as a criminal defense attorney, you're not allowed to present any evidence to these grand juries.
Yeah, this is totally improper that the foreperson of a grand jury is taking a victory lap on CNN. It's really quite gross and shows you that the grand jury process, which may or may not have secured an indictment against former President Trump, we don't know yet, but it shows that that process is compromised. It was not an unbiased process. She's not going on Fox News or Newsmax. She's going on CNN, which, no surprise, is rooting for the former president's demise.
Yeah, and she said some really bizarre things, too. So possibly another legal strategy for Trump's team if and when that does happen. Ken Belkin, Julianne Murray, appreciate your insight, your analysis today. Good to see you both.
Thank you both.
Thanks, John.
Thanks for having us.
You got it. Thank you.